Well, hello everybody, and welcome to your Monday night show. We've got a very lovely show in the mix. The cold snap of wherever you're at. I think I heard the other day that 48 states were supposed to get snow of some sort, and so if you got snow, and you're just like, you know what, I'm just going to stay in my house. I'm going to stay warm. Well, we are going to do something for you. I don't know what that thing is. We're going to try and make it enjoyable. I promise we won't talk too much about Huey Lewis.
Well, we will have to, because that really becomes part of the story of music history.
That was coming.
Yeah, that will be there. But for tonight's show, what I want to do tonight is kind of look at our past and a little bit of what kind of things prepared us to get into the DJ industry and get into that performance world. And I think that tonight will be a little on the interesting side, because I wanted to kind of start. Dan, you went to school to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. MJ, you went to school and you got your teaching certificate.
Religious education was my major, actually.
Mm-hmm. And I went and got my teaching certificate. So we went to college and got that. And what I wanted, the first little bit is looking at our experience in college. We're going to start there, and then kind of go, if there's things we can jump back into high school that were things that kind of prepared us to be successful in what we're doing today, whether that's in the performance side or in the business side, in the organization side. We're going to look at all the different areas. So that's kind of where I wanted to start, is if you look back, and Dan, have you start if you don't mind. In those college years, what kind of things were you doing during that? Because obviously learning some of the things for teaching probably didn't apply too much, teaching calculus type stuff, maybe not so much, but there were things.
I guess we have to, my story is different though, because by the time I was actually going to school for teaching, I had been a DJ for 10 years by that point.
Okay.
So I have two undergraduate degrees. My first degree is actually in radio broadcasting. So that actually kind of is what more than the teaching aspect led me into DJing and led me really to kind of prepare, because that's what I leaned on heavily when I started doing mobile DJing, was my radio side and the music that I was playing and that kind of thing. So I guess I'm a little weird in that aspect from where you were going to go.
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, even then, so then we just move it back. What types of things that were you doing in high school? And if we have to go back into elementary, that's really going to get weird. I'm just going to say it right there. But there were things that prepared you, little things that may not have seemed important at the time, and you look back and say, wait a second, that moment did something.
Yeah. So I would say probably the biggest thing, and yeah, we almost have to go back to high school for where I kind of had a flip of a switch, for lack of better terms. When I was growing up, I was pretty shy. I mean, there was a lot of reservedness to me, and even sometimes like that side still comes out, and I get a little, timid from where I'm at. But growing up, I was involved in the band, and when I got to high school, this high school that I went to had a competitive band. So this wasn't like the type of band where you go to the football games and you play and you might march a little bit and everybody, but like we would go to competitions every week and drive around the state and the Eastern Coast and like compete against other bands. And so it became very much like a sport level type of activity for me. And I made a lot of tight connection with friends. Sophomore year of high school, I went down to New Orleans. We played in the Sugar Bowl, and I don't know what happened necessarily, but I went from being like this shy guy to suddenly going, "Hey, let's have a good time." And I'm going to blame New Orleans, I guess, but that side or whatever started to come out. So that was New Year's during my sophomore year. During my junior year, like the fall of my junior year, the local radio station was looking for high school talent to basically just be their grunt laborers at remotes. And I said, that sounds like fun. And so I never probably would have even thought about that had I not kind of had that breakout moment, if you will, to where I kind of was able to be more personable.
Let's hold on that breakout moment. I like that that moment when all of a sudden it occurred or that a person's either personality came. MJ, let's your breakout moment like that. Did you have an instance like that where all of a sudden it was like, whoa, I'm on I like being on a stage for whatever reason?
I was born this way.
Lady Gaga.
Yes,
Good
lady.
job.
I have some joke ones, and that one just came to me. It wasn't even on my list.
So he's got the snarky comments already.
I have some snarky ones here that are like, yeah, somebody just please press the mute button on that guy. I can't say that there is a moment, because I still go back to Howie asking me a couple years ago, when did you know you wanted to be a DJ? And I'm like, I still don't. I question this choice every day of my life. I don't know. I know things prepared me for it. I didn't have a moment like that, but I had a bunch of stuff prepared me for it. I guess my one pop moment of like, I want to see what I can do with this is the first time I won a dance competition. Again, DJing is like down on my list of things. It's just what makes me money.
Sure.
No, but MJ, I mean, a couple weeks ago, I remember you telling us about, the fact that you grew up in a very musically inclined family. You grew up with a family who promoted that type of activity. And so that, like for me, with that pop moment, I'm talking in sophomore, that was not anything thinking about DJing, but was there a moment where, because you've talked about wanting to perform, not necessarily the DJ side, but that performance side and the touring, when did that kind of direction or that thought of wanting to perform, again, maybe not DJing, but just more oomph?
I guess that would have to be the dance competition. I was probably, 19, I think, 18 or 19. No, I was a senior in high school, I think. Yeah. And just kept winning dance competitions all over the city. Like, I lived an hour out of the city, and I'm going to the city and beating people in the city in dance competitions, winning all kinds of stuff. And there came a point with that. I want to see how far I could take it. There was a dance company in town called the Joyce Ellis Dancers. And I thought, well, maybe I should go join them. And I ended up being in a competition against two of them, and they beat me, and I got second place to them. And they invited me to come to practice next weekend. And I went to the practice and joined up, and it was all forward from there. In fact, this week I've been trying to find a good week to show it. I have a video coming out of one of the dances in 91. So it's 30 years ago, me dancing up front in the whole group, and I did some choreography in that one and everything.
Wow.
But no country. No, please. Thank you. But I think that may have been it. Like I said, I grew up, like Dan said, I did grow up in a family where my dad had his own big band years ago. He was a singer, a trumpeter. Other siblings played instruments. I played drums in church in high school. When I was in high school, I was a drummer. And back then, it was like sacrilegious to have drums in a church, but we did. And I played drums all through high school and that. And but it was after that, I think, when things kind of clicked, is the dance competition. When I was like, okay, this is a whole different thing. I even write about it in my book, how that there's one thing where there's me drawing, because I did a lot of artistic drawing and painting and stuff when I was younger, and to step out onto a dance competition, and then to take that dance competition and intentionally get on stage to put on a show, that was a big transforming moment to me, because it wasn't just me doing something I love. It wasn't me doing something I was good. I'm doing something that you're going to stop and watch me for the purpose of entertainment. Mm-hmm. Not a competition, not me doing because I wanted to. This was the purpose of entertainment. And that was kind of a shift point where it was like, okay, this is different. And I literally remember sitting down with some of my friends, because people I grew up with, you don't do stuff like that. You work a job, you put on boots, all that. I mean, you just didn't talk about poetry, nothing.
Right.
And I sat down and talked to a few of them about, I thought about joining, because that was a tough decision for me, because I would be putting kind of myself out there if I did that. And a couple of them said, well, why not? And other ones just bit their lip. So I went for it. And that was probably one of my best. I still look back at that. The group that I worked with for years there, we still call ourselves the Joyce Ellis Dancers, JED. We're the JED family. And we still have a Facebook page where we do that. And we talk and share pictures and all kinds of stuff still to this day, 30 years later.
Wow.
See, there was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it was different. Like you said, like the DJing thing wasn't it. It was you and the band. And I understand that now, because that really was like my thing. Once I went past that, it was like, okay, this is, because like I said, prior to that, I did a lot of art, but it was all just me head down on the desk. That's all it was. So yeah, there you go.
What about you, John?
And I was born this way.
And he was born that way.
God made me funky. No, sorry.
So this would go back, and because I thought about this, it's like, well, I did some things in school or whatever, but really, my first experience of where entertaining was something would probably go back into second or third grade, where, and this isn't probably the greatest story in the world, but we'll just tell it anyway. So back then, my parents and family, grandparents and such, would have card parties. So they would have different groups coming over, and they would play Whist Me or whatever the card game was, and they would do their thing. Well, at one of the card parties, I told an offensive joke or an off-color joke, that has profanity in it. And the laughs I got from doing that. Well, then every, sailor type joke that I had heard over the years, and it wasn't that many, but I had uncles that would share those types of jokes. And that became the thing, is I would go and I would be telling these off-color jokes that had profanity in them, and they were, and it was the reaction of this rush of people laughing and having a good time with telling these jokes, and it was like, this was really cool. And I think that was really the first experience of wow, doing something that made people have a good time. It started there, and then that, as I go through, and that's when I started, getting the cassettes and recording off the radio, so then I could play them in school during the milk breaks, so the kids could listen to the things, and recording the theme song from the Dukes of Hazzard, so we could listen to that in school, and that was.
I have that on 45. No joke.
So it was just that. It was just a weird thing, and. Wouldn't recommend that for most people's children. That was probably not a cool thing, but yeah, that's really kind of how.
I just can't imagine that. Yeah. In my mind, I just can't see you telling off-color jokes.
And even thinking back to it is that was.
To me, John's off-color joke would be, someone said hello to me the other day and I ignored them.
Well, but keep in mind, he is from Minnesota, so off-color is not like Pittsburgh off color or
no, it was New York
Jersey off color.
It was New York Jersey off color.
Oh,
it really was. It was. There were more F-bombs being dropped in those jokes, because I had uncles who were farmers and in the construction world and doing different things, and they obviously, I thought they were the pretty cool guys, so that's where we started. So. Yeah,
quite something new every day.
Yeah, that's something I've talked about too terribly much, but that really was that first experience of feeling that rush that you would feel like you when you play the right song at the right moment, and the crowd's like, ah, and you get that adrenaline feel. That was really the first time. Because prior to that, I was in school plays, and I was in Stone Soup at one time, and we did the Three Little Pigs in first grade, and all the. I remember they happened, and I remember I was there because I saw a picture with my piggy nose and my piggy tail, but I couldn't tell you anything beyond that.
This show should be called The Enlightenment of John Young.
This is the dark side of so. So that was kind of the stage thing. If we kind of branch into the music side, and Dan had mentioned, of course, when he got into his senior year, but let's get your junior year when you got into the radio station. When did your love of music really start to come out?
I would say I always liked it, because it was one of those things where I would always have music playing. I would go to bed with the radio on. I hit the sleep timer, so it would put me to sleep, and I would always listen to it. And I remember probably even like 5th or 6th grade, there was an oldies station that was the studio was 2 miles from my house. And I mean, I'm out in the country, so like for anything to be anywhere near me was ridiculous. And so like just to kind of be like, oh, they were just down the street and listening to it and stuff like that. And so like I can remember some of that. And then when I got into middle school, like it developed to where I was kind of listening to more of what was, popular. It was like a top 40-ish type of station. And so I was always kind of listening to music, but it wasn't one of those things where I would have ever thought to, taking a step towards the radio station. So again, radio was always one of those things that I liked and enjoyed. And even when I started, working there, I wasn't on air. I was somebody who was just there when they would go on location and help out with that. So it was a way to kind of feel like I was a part of it without actually being like a visual vocal part. And again, I've talked about, I mentioned how I was more on the shy side. I was comfortable with that. I wasn't ready to step into any sort of limelight, even though I'd had that breakout moment. There's a big difference between a breakout moment among friends and right. Maybe complete strangers than it is to like, everybody in the valley.
That's interesting. It's almost like the basketball manager, that you were there and you were part of it, but yet you weren't on the front with that yet at that point in time. But yet he eventually comes out the bench, and we'll learn more about that in just a minute. MJ, when did your you grew up in that musical family with a lot of music around you, but when did that become, or maybe was it always just such a part of your life that it was kind of like the air you breathe?
I was born this way. No.
Okay, we're good.
That'd be my go-to all night. I actually have a note on that, and that's part of the reason why I wore the shirt tonight.
I gotta see what the shirt is. I gotta move up. Oh,
sorry.
Oh, yeah. There you look.
Is that good enough?
Yeah. No, I'm good. I've got so many windows open that I basically am seeing you from the chin up. I'm seeing you from the chin on up. Everything else is covered with another window. So.
I have something I note that I put down there that I didn't think much of this until I don't know how many years ago they put the movie out of the story of Johnny Cash. That was a long time ago, in like the early 2000s, I think, or something like that. I think Joaquin Phoenix played him. But when he was a kid, he did this, and I didn't think much of it. But, like I said, we grew up way in the country, so it like no neighbors, nobody to play with. I was the youngest by a bunch of years, so I had like nobody. I think it's why my creativity has went through the roof, because that's all I did. But I had a little clock radio, and we're talking like grade school, middle school even. And I remember it was a GE clock radio that was almost like a perfect rectangle, and it was plastic, but it was wood grain plastic. And I would sit there with it lay down in my bed with it on my chest and just change channels constantly and just listen to everything I could listen to, college radio stations or anything I could pick up, because we were kind of up on a hill. So I got a lot of stations, and that complete immersement in all different types of music that I didn't think anything of, I think really it prepared me down the road. Like I said, also with the family, my parents were into like the big band, the Frank Sinatras, the Dean Martins. My brother was into the classic rock, Bad Company, Leonard Skinner, Pink Floyd. My sister was into the pop in those eras of Barry Manilow, Electric Light Orchestra, all that kind of stuff. And then I got in later on when like friends I were in was into like, Run DMC and Sugar Hill Gang and Furious Five. And it just, that's, I kind of got into breakdancing a little bit later, in high school. But it was just, I think all of that music just put together, I didn't see like a division of things or people even. I didn't see this at, that's such and such kind of music, or, that's their music or our music. I'm like, no, it's music. Music's music. It's music's for everybody. And that's kind of the way I think my mind kind of developed that, is just across the board, music's music. And I think that has helped me, like I said, so many years of just sitting there. Music after music after music after music after music, hours, and it just kind of beats into your head. I don't know. That's the best way I can explain it. I explained it in my book, kind of like that. I don't know.
So music,
it's easy for you to. I would imagine it was also easy for you to then kind of hone also listening skills, because when you're kind of, especially when your hands on the dial like that, you're listening to it, and if something doesn't hit your ear the right way. We've all had songs where, we're listening to it and go, really? Like, that's just not me. It would be easy for you to flip over, and having so many options could man, you could have a palette and you could really fine tune it to artists or specific songs that just kind of gave you that rather than this whole style.
Yeah. I mean, you had the public radio stations at that point that had a bunch of different styles. You'd have world music on one thing, and then there was one I remember that it showcased nothing but American Indian music artists, flutists, and different things that are of that nature. And I used to listen to that. I can't remember the one guy's name who I actually was a fan of his that later on in life I ended up looking him up on CDs. So there was just a lot of everything, and I think that just kind of opened my mind to a bunch of stuff. And I think it's where I get my mixing style from, I think, because music is very mathematical and very what's the word I'm looking for?
Defined?
No, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. I talk about it, I use the word all the time, modular. So as you put a song together, it isn't like, oh, this song starts out with this, and when people talk about, I can't mix that song, this, it's all segments to me. So it doesn't matter, I don't care how many segments are there. When we get to this point, we need to put these two things together here. So how are we going to put these two things together? Everything else doesn't matter. And that's why I just kind of look at all the music and see that it's all, when someone says, oh, it's not, that song's not mixable, I'm like, I'm laughing at you, because anything is mixable if you do it with some creativity, some tools, something or other. So, and by the way, just to throw this in for Dan, my freshman year of college, I was a radio and communication. That's what I had signed up for originally. That's what I was going to do, and it changed, obviously. Actually, why it changed, and I know I'm talking real long here, but I met a guy when I was dancing with Joyce Ellis. He was one of the producers at WTAE, which is the big Channel 4 ABC station here. And he said, don't go to school for communication. Go for anything else, but get involved in the communication in college, in the radio stations, in the TV station, if your college has it, anything like that. Because you don't need a degree to go into radio. You need experience. And he said, so if that fails, you have the degree to go do something else. And that's why I changed it up.
Yeah, nobody taught me that one. I actually didn't go to school for radio broadcasting. I'd already caught the bug in high school. Yeah. And after trying to do another career, it was like, Yeah.
So MJ, you were talking about your music is the universal love of music that you were kind of alluding to there. So when did country music become bad? I mean, we're talking but this music, and it's great and it's lovely and it's pretty and I loved it all, and then all of a sudden at some point in time, country music.
Yes, John, I can hear John in the chats telling me I can hear binary. You have no idea with my brain when it comes to notes and tuning things. I could tell you stories all day about stuff I've done in real life with my brain and what it's picked up, and people just stand there with their mouth open. But I don't know about the country, to be honest with you, because there was some country. Most of the people in high school were into the classic rock. That was the big thing everybody was into. You're into the rock and roll. And then I came, when the rap came around and I got interested in that, I was kind of like the outsider, because you're part of that grouping of people, they would always say. Mm-hmm. But the country, I just never really liked it. I mean, there was stuff there when I was a kid that, I remember, what's the one, Charlie Daniels, Devil Went Down to Georgia, was humongous, like crazy humongous. What's the other one he did? I remember the one line and when just lay your hand on a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, I think you'll finally understand. About America being proud, something like that.
No, there's like one. That's with the Charlie Daniels one.
No, he's the other one.
He's got three or four. There was a swamp something, and then there was he's got a couple of others. But
anyways, that one was a big one in the area simply because he's talked about that. But there were things along the way. But I just no. I think I lost a chord.
We're still with you though, at least.
Oh yeah. That's a different chord.
I have that feeling. I have that feeling in my head all the time, John. So
yeah.
So it's just not. I just listen to it, and to me, it doesn't have. It's not inspiring. Like if I were to describe country music, I would describe it laid back, remember when kind of music, which it is. And I don't want to remember when. I want to work towards the future. I don't want to think about retirement. I'm still trying to make it.
Oh, funny. So the music side of it it's an interesting thing because as a youngster, we lived down in the Minneapolis area when I was in that first and second grade, and in second grade I probably got the same little digital clock radio that MJ had, and down there you could get a lot of stations. So I would go and find a station that I liked, and I think that's where my appreciation for what would be considered today as yacht rock, that's where that came from, because I would go and I could, when I'd go to bed at night, I could set this sleep thing, and I don't know if that played for 30 minutes or whatever it did, but you could do that, and then I'd fall asleep with that on in the background. And at that time of night, or day, 9 o'clock at night, whatever time it was I was going to bed, it was that type of a soft type of rock that was being played. That's probably where it started. Unfortunately, then in third grade, we moved up to this area where there wasn't anything but an old-time station. That's all that was here. And I had like no musical influence from the airwaves until the mid 80s, really, because there just wasn't much for stations. They weren't broadcasting that far. The top 40 station, I didn't know that existed until 7th grade, maybe, just because I didn't have a radio that could pick it up. And FM wasn't a thing in any of our cars until then, because it was all AM radio, so it was talk radio. So that wasn't much of it. So that influence of the cities had that moment. And then when we lived there, my dad, who was really into music and had many albums, he would listen with headphones most of the time, occasionally without, but most of the time it was basically his little private time to go listen to albums. So I didn't get to hear what he was listening to, which ironically was much of this. But when we moved up here and we weren't in an apartment building, so there were no neighbors up and down, then that became my musical influence of getting into more of the 60s, the 60s music of the Beatles and such. And then we got into the 80s when I could finally have a radio station and I could finally have a boombox that had a record button, and I had the world by the butt. That was like it was it. Country music at that time was I would say was probably one of the things I absolutely hated, because there was a neighbor that lived right next to us, and he had one of those little cone horn type speakers on the outside of his house, and he would play country music all day long. I'd get up in the morning, go down by the lake to go fish, and I'm listening to Freddie Fender. And it seemed like Freddie Fender was there. Donna Fargo and Freddie Fender were always on. But that was that. So, yeah, the country music at that time was just this whiny crap that I would have just made me cringe. It was like fingernails on a chalkboard type of a thing. And then as you got into it more, it was that experience in the late elementary recording TV shows, and then getting that able to record the radio stations and play those at school for the kids during those breaks. That's where it's like, this is really cool. I can play a song on demand and people think it's neat. I'm back on stage.
I think it's funny, we all have our experience with country music. Like, I grew up on a dairy farm, so like
it was there.
Like, Dad listened to it all the time.
You had a 175-acre beef farm I was on, so.
But for my father, it was like country music is what you listen to. Like the station didn't come off that. My brothers were into classic rock, and they would fight with my dad. Like when he would step out of the bar and they'd flip the radio over to something else. But almost without fail, it was always classic, or it was always country. And it probably wasn't until I got into high school before I started like listening to it and enjoying it. But before it, man, I would bust my dad up one side and down the other for listening to it. Just like, I just didn't get into it. And now it's one of the stations I flip to when I'm driving down the road. I still remember my mom, like one time, like, I don't remember when it was after my dad passed, going, man, if your dad knew you were listening to the country right now.
That's funny.
The song that I was talking about was called In America by Charlie Daniels. So,
Yeah, Charlie Daniels, beyond That Went Down to Georgia was about it. There might have been a while. I don't remember. There's a couple of others.
Two others that I remember.
Yeah.
Radio station and stuff, but it just, I don't know. What are you reading, John? What is going on, John? Why are you laughing?
I was looking at the next question where I wanted to go with this.
I thought you
so
chat.
let's as we got into the DJ thing, when we had our musical tastes and such, when did your taste or the understanding of playing specific music to get a reaction from a crowd, when did that start to actually resonate with you?
It hasn't yet. No.
You mean playing a specific song as opposed to playing our taste? Is
Exactly, exactly. Knowing that because a lot of DJs and there's somebody in the chat room there that there we go. When someone's just starting out, of course, they love music, and even when Michael was starting out, my Michael, he had his songs he loved. And that's really what and then it became the conversation of, you may like those songs, but that's not the songs that are going to work for you everywhere, or not going to work with most people, whatever that discussion became. That was a realization that we had to have. And in my personal situation, that was actually one of the early ones that came to me. And people used to ask, what's your favorite type of music? It's like things that people get into and they dance. I didn't, I preferred the 80s stuff. That's where I grew up. But it's like, if people want to dance to, Clarence Carter, we're going to play Clarence Carter. I don't care for the song, but we're going to play it, that kind of a situation. That hit me early on, and I think that came from going back into high school and being at the different dances where you had DJs, because there were very few DJs back in the early 80s that were doing, or I should say probably mid 80s, no, it was early, that were doing dances and would actually have the music, a big enough music collection to be able to play enough music of what the kids were into. They had 45s from the radio station, and that's what they were going to spin for the night. So to be able to actually play to the crowd was something that came to me pretty early on, and I was able to incorporate right away in what we did. How about yourself, guys?
So I'll tackle it, I guess, since MJ's like doing a Stevie Wonder impression. Yeah, I know. It was great. So what I would say for me, it's kind of weird because I don't think I really hit that realization until I was more into weddings and doing weddings the right way. And what I mean by that is, like, when I got started and I was playing, I was listening to the stations that we had in town here were really just hot AC stations. So there was a lot of 80s. There was a lot of 90s. It was, a station that was going to appeal to a lot of audience. And so when I was playing the stuff that I was listening to, it was the stuff that other people were listening to. So it wasn't one of those things where I kind of really had to step out of my comfort zone. And so it wasn't until I really started to DJ a little bit more and kind of get around a top 40 station and start listening to that more, and then go, oh, I can't forget about this style that's over here because, I don't listen to it. I can't forget about it. And so playing to that and getting that piece has always been there. But in the same respect, I think because I've always listened to and appreciated a wide variety of music, that I've kind of lucked out in the fact that the stuff that gets the biggest reaction outside of school dances is the stuff that I'm already listening to and enjoying myself.
Mm-hmm.
School dances is its own enemy. Entity, not enemy.
Entity. Or enemy. There's been times.
Yeah, a little bit of both, really, probably. Not a total slip of the tongue there, I guess.
Do you really want an answer? I'm taking mine off stuff Dan said, because I didn't spin anything but EDM until about 2005, and then I couldn't make a full-time living at just EDM, so I had to start spinning top 40 hip-hop stuff that I didn't like. Mm-hmm. So that was like the first time that I was spinning stuff I didn't like to listen to. And that really took music away from me. I mean, that literally, it took my heart out of what I was doing. Because I still to this day, it's an easy paycheck. And I don't mean that in an insultive way to other DJs, because I do work hard to practice and be better. I stay up on the music, obviously. Otherwise, at my age, I could not be doing college, bars and clubs and stuff if I didn't. But my passion for the music is just simply zero nowadays. There's none there for the stuff I play. Zero. A couple years ago, I was going to put together a collage of pictures from the year. And I said, okay, I'll just put it together with my favorite song. And then I look and I'm like, I don't have a song this year that I would want to play. Not one song the whole year that I felt, oh, I would like to put this together with my things to make a memory. Nope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough for me because it's a two-edged sword. It's something I'm good at, something that it's a job that I can do, that I don't hate. I'm blessed to get to do what I do. It leaves me an open schedule to do other things. I get a lot of opportunities. I'm apparently good at it because people keep asking me to do it. And how many times I've had end dates to get out of the entertainment business. But I think I've kind of finally settled into it this past year when I started working, about the creativity of it, to where being a live DJ is very creative. You are really reading a crowd, and it's like a painter that as he goes along, he needs to change the what he was painting. The person moved, so I need to change this. And that's kind of the way I feel with DJing, is it's so creative that you on the spot have to ad lib as you go along. That's what I think I like about it, is the fact that it just is like deep, hard, intense creativity for 4 hours. Just, I come out of there sweating. But yeah, that's probably where I come into with the music. I know that sounds terrible, but I like the music that I like. I like stuff that's dancey. So,
and that's one of the big frustrations Michael's having, is that he's starting to see the handwriting on the wall that if he's going to be going to college and doing his things in central Minnesota, he's probably going to have to pick up doing weddings if he wants to be able to make the DJ thing pay the bills.
Which I totally understand, because it's something I have no interest in doing weddings.
And he's looking at it as that I either do weddings for a couple of years to finish college and graduate with no debt, or I have to take out student loans and stay true to his style of music, for lack of a better way.
I can give him some advice. I would say tell him for those couple of years, do the weddings, get yourself out of debt, because being out of debt, I tell people this so often, being debt-free allows you to chase your dreams so much more. Mm-hmm. So tell him, if he can get himself out of debt by the time he ends college, he can chase his dream, but yet have that degree to fall back on if he wants to.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately his plan. Well, we'll see. We're not in wedding season yet, so we'll see what that gets us.
No.
So here's one question that I would want to pose to both of you. When you're thinking about the music that you play, do you find yourself liking a song more simply because it gets a positive reaction? So with John, when you were talking about the music and playing stuff that you like versus don't, I got thinking back to just the different things that I play. And I've often found myself enjoying a song that I may not necessarily have normally liked, but because I got, and then they start singing it, and suddenly like I'm caught up in the moment, and I'm like mouthing the words and singing it like it's been my favorite song since I was 2. Like, not saying that's happening with everything, but I often find myself getting more into a song and even certain styles of music because of that playing aspect, that if I was just listening to on my own, nope, it would have been like, nope, skip, let's go to a different one.
I think you're picking up on the passion from other people in that. And there are some songs that have definitely been that way, especially when I was doing the bar 5 nights a week. The regulars would come in and they would ask for some weird songs, but it was their song. And after a period of time, you start to, in some cases, you just have an appreciation. It's like, oh, that's not too bad of a song. And there are times where it's like, gosh, that's a really good song. It'll never play anywhere else, but I enjoyed that song. As far as there's my favorite songs, I guess, if you wanted it, there's songs that when I'm listening to them that are not mainstream, and I don't want to say mainstream, they're not the top 10 type things. It's going to be something that was, came out and it was like, ooh, that's really cool, and it was gone. They just did the inauguration. What was that band? Can't think of it.
It was a jazz band, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't a jazz band. It was a 90s. They were a 90s.
Democats. It was a jazz band called the Democats, wasn't it?
The Democats. No. You Get What You Give is, I think, the song that. Isn't that it?
Yeah. You look
New Radicals.
New Radicals. There we go. There's an example of a song that came out, and I, for some reason, I kind of correlated it to songs like that. It's like you had a hunger for chocolate or something. There was a craving you had, And when you found the thing that solved the craving, you're like, oh, that's one of those songs for me. And I don't know why. It just is. And I really like the song. Duncan Sheik's Barely Breathing is another one of those. I don't know why. It's just like, oh, yeah, I like that. So
I have nightmares because of that song.
Yeah, probably most people would that weren't telling off-color jokes in second grade. But those have been ones that are the favorites. I think there's the favorite songs that I enjoy like that have a craving, solving a craving, however you want to look at that. And there's the songs that I like because they make me money. The Uptown Funks of the world. I mean, those are the ones that and you can sing along, do your little thing, and because they make me money.
I gotta say that I'm the opposite, to where there are songs that I play, like example, Mo Bamba and Truth Hurts came out, give or take, the same time. You had to play those every night you're out. And soon as you started it, the entire place erupted, to the point I had 2 places I DJ'd at that said, please don't play that song anymore. We think people are going to break through the floor. They're all jumping up and down at the same time. The whole building is shaking.
Oh, wow.
No joke. So they get that excited about those 2 songs, and I hate them both so bad. To me, I see the creativity in the people, what they did. I understand that. I understand that people like the creativity and the sing-along and the tones, but it's just like, it makes me miserable. It's like, I cannot wait till I can play the next song. I just simply hate this. I literally will stand back and just brood.
Well, and I think I'm with you with that one too. I think there's kind of that other side. If a song becomes so popular so fast and so kind of insane like that, it almost irks me, because it's just like any idiot could have played that song and gotten the reaction.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, with the crowd, the thing was brought up, and even somebody in the chat said the crowd makes them like a song more. It isn't that if the crowd likes it that makes me like it less. It's, I have to play it. It irritates. I don't want to play it for anybody. If they get excited and the place goes great, and the owner's like, hey, we're going to give you a tip tonight. You did great. I don't care. I don't care about the crowd. I know how to work them. I manipulate them. I do it 4 nights a week like a champ, but I don't care. Because I'm not playing anything I like. So the whole night is me manipulating someone for a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I know that sounds terrible, but it's the truth. That's why when I spin my sets here, it's all dance music. It's the only stuff I can stand playing. Except the other night, I did this whole 90s R&B stepping kind of night. It was all like laid back kind of. It was kind of a nice little groove. But yeah, sorry people that look up to me as a DJ. Sorry.
He's just a money grubber now.
I worked for a company here in the city for a while. I was subcontracted by him, and he would send me to this place all the time. It was a good paycheck. People went crazy all the time, and he's like, man, you're so lucky. I love DJing there. I'm like, why? I said, it's a joke. And he's like, everybody gets all excited. And I'm like, so? You still got to play crap music. And he's like, what do you mean? You mean the crowd doesn't make it for you? I'm like, I don't care. I know I'm doing a good job, so I want to make them jump around, so I'll continue to get a paycheck. But just because they like it doesn't mean I'm having a good time. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I know people are hating me right now. Feel free to send me hate mail if you want. I'll delete it like I do everything else. Like, people make comments about me DJing with only a laptop. You watch how quick I delete stuff.
That's funny.
Only a laptop.
Yeah, that's
why I changed it to nearly.
I know.
We got a couple minutes left, guys. I want to just touch on one area, and we're not going to be able to dig into this too terribly much. For the business side of it, to get yourself prepared to understand that you're making a paycheck, kind of just give us an overview of what got you to the point where, what helped you in understanding that you were running a business and you needed to do certain things more than just play music.
Mine was the opposite again, so I'm leading off with this. Mm-hmm. I hated my day jobs. This isn't a job I hate. In my book, I talk about that there seems to be a sliding scale. The more I hate a job, the more money I make at it. I worked in corporate America. I've worked in factories. They were all just horrible, drudgery, miserable things that I literally, one place I worked at for 13 years because it was a good job. You know, you get a good job. This was in the 80s and 90s. You work there. I literally have nightmares since then about having to go back there and work. I hated it so bad.
Wow.
So that's why when I got a chance to really jump into DJing, I did it because I knew it was something that I could control. If I didn't like DJing somewhere, if I didn't like the owner, the place, I quit and go work somewhere else. Simple as that. So mine's the opposite.
So, but to learn how, or the inspiration or the, to get you prepared to quote prices and ask for the money and to do that. I mean, is it just something that you picked up?
Side of the bar, my side of what I do in the bar and club, that never comes up. There's no contracts. I haven't done a contract in probably about 4 years. The job pays this amount. You go and do it. You collect your paycheck at the end of the night. That's it. That there's no preparing. It's I show up, I do a job, I leave. And that's pretty much all there is to it. That's why I think I like it, because there's no fuss, no getting to know people, no teaming up, no teamwork, because that's what I hated in corporate America, because they're like, oh, we want to do a team building thing. What's me sitting with someone gonna make me work better? Whether I like them or not, I'm not gonna do my job any better or worse whether I like them or not. That's just stupid. I'm gonna do my job. Just let me do my job, you know? So it's a job I don't hate. And it's very, like I said, it's so creative. That's what I've learned over the past couple of years. That's why I love it, is because I get paid to be creative. And I love that so much.
Dan, business influence, what kind of got you getting that side of your business together?
So because I never did this full time, I learned a lot the wrong way. When I was first starting out, I did everything with my personal account. I had the money come, when I did an event, all the money came into my personal account. And as I got, once I got married, then it became even more difficult in certain things, because it's like, well, if I wanted to add something to the system, or if I wanted to buy something, now I had to ask my wife, because it was coming from our personal account, not just, hey, can we have this thing in the house, but can I use our money to go do it? And it became a difficult thing. And I would say it probably wasn't until I went to the DJ Expo the first couple times did I suddenly realize the right way to do it. Like, I knew I had to have contracts, and I had a mentor, if you want to call him that, when I was in Tennessee, that kind of came alongside and said, listen, you need to have a contract. And he even gave me like his contract to kind of set it up. It was horrible, but I still had like those kind of things, and knowing to take a deposit, but I was always taking like such a small amount that little things that I learned over the years started to kind of make it better, if you will. And so when I went to the DJ Expo and I would see these guys who, and girls, I shouldn't exclude, but that were making a living off of DJing, I suddenly went, oh, this can be done. And you mean, okay, so you have money going to a personal account. And I still remember Mark from Eternal Lighting one time, he said something, basically the idea of, having the business pay yourself. Take all the money into the business account and pay yourself a certain percentage, or however you want to go about doing it. And he said, what you'll find is, not only are you going to make more money, but when you go to buy something, you're going to have it. And it was such a weird concept to think that if I put money to the side, somehow my personal account, I was going to have more money. But believe it or not, that's what started happening. Like, I started splitting the money up, and I started realizing that I was going to have more money, and I did. And then when I wanted to buy the equipment, all I had to do is say, hey, can I bring this into the house? Not, hey, can I use our money? And it's that suddenly made things a little bit easier, and it made the business start running a little bit smoother. But even at that, like I talked about a few moments ago about my deposits are always so small. Like, it was like, if I was charging, $1,000, I was like, my deposits were like 100. Like, and I had somebody local who just kind of came alongside of me, and he's like, you realize that you're not really giving them a reason to not walk out on you. Mm-hmm. Like you start charging such a small amount that really, if they wanted to, $100, if they're going to find somebody cheaper, if that's the reason why they went someplace else, it's not a big deal. He's like, start charging a little bit more. And I was like, okay. And I went even higher than what he told me, and haven't looked back, and neither have my clients. And so it was just little things like that it's constantly always learning, listening, picking up, and realizing that even while I think I might know what I'm doing, somebody knows how to do it better. I don't care who you are. I don't care who it is in the industry. Somebody knows how to do something better than the person you're looking up to. So always look for a way to pull something that they've said into it and make your area better. Yeah.
So I'll just wrap with graduated from college and started the DJ thing, and that trial and error, as you were referring to, Dan, was huge for those first few years. But during that time, that early time, I started when I was teaching those first couple of years, and I wasn't doing as much DJ work. A student actually got me into reading sci-fi books, and I know this is weird, but it started with those Star Wars books and went through just a ton of books with him over the course of the year that I was teaching, and he was in the class. And I really developed I was able to read and retain at a high level. That progressed into reading these different books on business books, and that transitioned into sales books and marketing books. And the library just continued to grow throughout the 90s, and learning from those sources. And then these audio CDs where you could listen to those on the way home from your events when I had a CD player finally in a vehicle. Those really became, in that mid-90s, before the DJ convention started up, that really became a big part of learning how to, I went from the late 80s, early 90s, and the trial and error and try something and find out it wasn't working, to now having a book education, from the car U throughout that mid to late 90s. And then we get into the conventions where you get there and you're learning from people who in some cases have degrees in business or an MBA in business that can say, hey, here's how it really works, and which was really kind of a cool thing. So I think the ultimate, though, from tonight's show is that everyone's got their own path. Everyone's going to get to a point. And wherever that point is, for some people, it's going to be different than others because of the shows you do, the types of things you do, your passion for the industry, what have you. There isn't a right way, and there's not a wrong way. Unless, of course, you don't like Huey Lewis. That's wrong. Then you just don't do it. But there's your way, and you're going to have to find what that is and what works for you. And if you need help, there's people out there that you can reach out to, ask questions, like the chat room. Come to the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill. Howie's going to be recording here in a few minutes. Once they're done recording, it's a time to ask questions, because you'll have DJs from literally around the world in the chill room on Mondays and Tuesday nights that can give you their thoughts, and that sometimes will spur some thought in your mind or take you in a direction you hadn't thought of before, and could really be a life-changing moment. So that's it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what do we got? What do we got coming up?
So let's see. Howie's going to be coming up. Jimmy Reed is in with Howie to record in the chill room tonight, DJNTV.com/chill. They'll be doing that at 10 o'clock Eastern, so right after our show. And then once Howie and Jimmy are done, Jimmy does some DJ producing and such. This isn't Jimmy, our graphics guy. That's Jimmy DePalma, Jimmy Spin. But Jimmy Reed's going to be coming in, and he's been doing some live events. So he's got a variety of different things they're going to be talking about this evening. Then tomorrow night, our first show is going to be on at 9 o'clock. No, 10 o'clock Eastern. Tomorrow night's going to be the Brian and Jay. We're going to have Ben jump in, and we're going to have the three of them, and we're going to do the questions on the timer type of thing. You guys have probably seen me do that before, where we have the little timer clock down here, and I will give them a topic, and they will have, I'm thinking, 90 seconds to give us their thoughts on it. And we're going to include Ben in this to get some different thoughts and perspective on that. So that'll be tomorrow night. Then Wednesday, MJ, what did you have on the itinerary Wednesday night?
I'm going to do a show on the hashtag killing now. After my set the other day, those of you watching on Twitch, I did a set on the little tiny controller, 2 hour. I got to get it out of there. The 2 hour set on this. And so we're going to talk about big controllers, little controllers. What's the right size controller for you? Does it matter, etc.? Does size matter when it comes to controllers?
Excellent. That should be a lot of fun, and it was a great topic. I didn't even really think about that, but you only need to you don't need a big controller to use Megaseg. I mean,
I was wondering I was about ready to try and work it in, but he did it for us.
It's got a couple of buttons here. That's all it takes. All right, Dan.
Well, on that note, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in. And as John said, it's all about the path. It's all about the journey. And I think it's worthwhile for you to even, kind of reflect on your own path and think about how did you get to where you are and where you want to do and keep doing what it is you're doing, whether it be for the passion, whether it be for the paycheck, or whether it just be for the fun and the reaction, whatever it might be. To be good to reflect on that. So thanks for tuning in. Of course, we're back here next Monday night. We'll see you then. Have a good one.
Good night, everybody.